Hey guys, and welcome to Poolshed Games. I am Andrew, also known as the Lich Lord, and tonight I'm going to be doing a special edition of the book Cantina in which I talk about all things The Hobbit. Now I'm going to be focusing mostly on this version of The Hobbit that I got, which is the Annotated Hobbit, which obviously has annotations, but also has some really cool illustrations by the author, by Tolkien himself, and some illustrations stuff from other authors and stuff like that too. But I'm also going to talk about the movie, which of course was out in December, which I saw. I liked, there were some things in the movie that bothered me a little bit, but ultimately I thought it was a really good movie. And not necessarily that great of an adaptation of the book, but it is definitely a cool movie and definitely worth seeing. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest that you go watch it, so you at least can get an opinion on, you know, what the movie was all about, some of the differences compared to the book if you've read the book. But first I want to talk about the book and the author and some of that stuff first. So, obviously, if you have been living under a rock for the past 60 or 70 years now, probably, you have heard that The Hobbit is written by J.R.R. Tolkien, who obviously was an English author. The Hobbit was written in the 1930s. Tolkien was a philologist, which is kind of like the study of language, I think, to a certain extent, something around those lines. And he taught at Oxford. He kind of was a writer on the hand. He never really anticipated for The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings to be as popular as they have become. Tolkien served during World War I. Yeah, just an altogether interesting guy. A great, he has written a few translation of old texts, like Sir Gawain the Green Knight, for instance, is also a great book. And I think there are a few, like The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun, which is basically the saga of the Volsungs, is also really cool. He did an adaptation of that. And he has done multiple other different types of fairy tales that kind of take place in Middle-earth. But he's definitely best known for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. My personal favorite of the two, I like The Hobbit a little bit more than I like Lord of the Rings. Don't get me wrong, I love The Lord of the Rings. But I think it's mostly just because The Hobbit was one of the first books I really read from front to cover. I was a young kid, probably 13 or 14 when I first read the book. It was one of the first chapter books that I actually read from cover to cover. I wasn't a real big reader when I was very young, and this is one of the books that really got me into reading in the first place. And I think one of the great things about The Hobbit is that it's really one of those books that anybody can read. If you're 6 years old, you can read it and really enjoy it. If you're 25, you can read it and really enjoy it. If you're 80, you can read it and really enjoy it. And all the ages in between them. It's just a great book all around. And there's a lot of really cool stuff in it. And if you haven't read it, I definitely suggest that you see it. Because it's definitely, read it. Because it's definitely worth reading. But now we'll get into the Annotated Hobbit. And I got this version of the book probably 3 years ago now. I got it for as a Christmas gift. I've read the regular version of The Hobbit probably probably at least 6 times. So when I got this, I was kind of like, oh, I've read that many times. But then I saw that it was an annotated version, so I was like, okay, well that might be really cool. And it definitely is. If you have read The Hobbit before and if maybe you feel like reading it again, but you want to get a little bit of background of, how the publication and how all the story kind of came together, and some maybe the allegories and allusions that are in the book, then I would suggest picking this up because it's really cool. And if you've read, the story, and if you've read it before, then it's kind of worth looking at the side notes and things like that. If you're reading the book for the first time, the annotations can be a little bit distracting, but if you've already read it, this is a great thing to pick up for that. But I'll give you an example of just kind of the layout of the book and how the annotations worked pretty much. As you can see, there are a lot of illustrations, which that is always really cool. I think they're really good illustrations there. There's also annotations, such as these ones here, which go along with the story. And that's just kind of one example. There are some chapters where there are just a ton. Here's a great example of the annotations in this book. There's the illustrations up here, and you have the annotations on the side, which are really cool, and in here is the story. So, you can obviously choose to buy this and not necessarily read the annotations, but the annotations are really cool, and I had a couple illustrations that I had marked out. There's a big photo gallery in the middle, which I thought was exceptionally cool. I'll go through some of them, which these are actually by Tolkien himself, which I thought were really cool. And there's a few more. Once again, these are actually drawn by Tolkien. Yeah, I think these ones over here might actually be by a different author or artist, but yeah, they're just really cool illustrations, and yeah, a few more in here. There's some, and these are from a different artist here. But they're still really cool. Yeah, there's this big whole thing on just the photos, which is art, and that's really cool alone, just to have that, and just some. I don't know. I kind of am a huge fan of Tolkien, so that's one of the reasons why I got this, and one of the reasons why I really enjoyed it. But I think there's also some. I mean, anybody I think could pick this up and enjoy it. And there's one of the illustrations I really liked of Lake Town there. Oops, over here, I mean. I thought that was a pretty cool illustration. And then there's a couple other in here that... I think that might be the last one that I had marked. Yeah, it's just all around really great book. If you're into Tolkien and you really are a fan of The Hobbit, then I suggest picking this up. It's a great book. Yeah, check it out. Now I want to talk about the movie a little bit. And obviously I saw the movie. As I said, I liked it. I think everybody probably loved the scene with Smaug. Smaug is just awesome. They did a great job. Benedict Cumberbatch did the voice acting, and he did the motion capture acting for it. It was just phenomenal. Now, I also saw the movie in 3D. I thought that the 3D effect was actually really good in this movie. A lot of times, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I have glasses or for other reasons, when I see a 3D movie, I get a really bad headache and my eyes start to hurt. It didn't happen in this one, which is really cool and rare, because I've never really had that happen in a 3D movie. The CG is good. I will say at some points the CG was kind of eh. I gotta be honest, I like the way they did the orcs in Lord of the Rings more than they did in The Hobbit. I think that all the orcs in The Hobbit are CG, where in Lord of the Rings they did them all with practical effects, they had makeup and props and things like that. And I don't know, I think that that gives a better effect to the movie in general. Don't get me wrong, Azog looks really great. He's a really cool looking orc. But a lot of the other orcs, especially Bolg, I was kind of like, well, I don't know. He's just kind of eh. The scenes with Legolas and Toriel, I thought they were pretty cool. It's one of those things they added in, which wasn't really necessary, but at the same time it was pretty cool, and it's kind of... I don't know, if they're going to add things, I guess that's alright to add. It is good to get some female characters in The Hobbit. Obviously, I don't think there are any in the book. I was actually talking to a friend I have at college this week, and she said that, yeah, they did add a female character, but they made her the love interest of two male characters, and it is kind of true, and I didn't really look at it that way at first, but when you think about it, it's kind of true. I don't take that however you want to take it, but I thought it was a decent scene. They could have done a little bit differently, but I still thought it was pretty cool. One scene that I thought was great, but I think should have been longer, is the scene with Bjorn. That's probably one of my favorite scenes from the book, and I just felt like, I don't know, the scene in the book, they send the dwarves in 2 at a time, and it's kind of goofy, but at the same time, it's one of those things that really stood out when I read the book. And they didn't do that in the movie, which I understand why they did. It would have screwed the pacing up completely. But I really hope if they release like an extended version of this, that they add something like that into it, because I think that would just make it great. Oh, one other thing I really liked. I liked the things they added with Gandalf. In The Hobbit, Gandalf is just kind of like, oh, I have to go take care of this, and he disappears. In the movie, however, it's explained a little bit. He goes to Dol Guldur. He goes to the tomb of the Witch King. It finds that the Nazgul have been released. And I just really thought that those scenes were really well done. It was really cool, and it's one of those things where it was in the Silmarillion, it was in the Book of Lost Tales, but it wasn't really elaborated on, so Peter Jackson was able to actually take some things there and be original with them, because none of that was actually really explained. What happened in the it was never really explained in the books what actually happened there. We know what happened, but like the actual events were unknown in the book. So that was one of the sections where they chose to add things that I thought was really, really great. They did Lake Town well. I think they could have cut a lot of that out of the movie, though. Stephen Fry was cool as the Master of Lake Town. I thought he was good. The guy that got to play Bard is great. As I said, Smaug is just absolutely amazing. They added a lot to that scene. They kind of, I mean, in the book, it's pretty much all about Bilbo. And in the movie, they made it a little bit more about Thorin Oakenshield, which honestly was a really cool scene. It was a big change from the book, but I thought it was a cool scene. And honestly, the outcome at the end of it is the same. So it didn't. I mean, I didn't think it was that big of a change. But all in all, I think I enjoyed the first movie in the series a little bit better. I still loved the second. I loved the Desolation of Smaug. I thought it was a great movie. I think you should go see it. But, you know, for hardcore book fans like myself, there were a few moments where I think kind of cringing a little bit, but I think that this, just the way they did the movie and the graphics and the story and everything else they did in the movie kind of made up for that. I don't know if somebody could easily say that they didn't like it. If that is the case, you know, leave a comment and tell me why you didn't like it. Maybe you who have actually read the Annotated Hobbit and, you know, have read all the annotations and things like that, you should comment and start a discussion on it, because this has some great little things in it. It's just a cool book. I mean, for all the illustrations and all of the explanations and things like that, it's a really cool book. But yeah, and go see the movie, because it is worth seeing. Even if it's a hard movie not to like. I will say that, because it's really cool. It's really action-packed. But there are a few moments where, you know, the hardcore fan's going to be like, huh, why'd they change that? But with all that aside, I think it's worth seeing. And this is definitely worth it. If you've never read The Hobbit, just original Hobbit, read that. I mean, you could get this and still read without reading all the annotations, but you should just get really the regular Hobbit and read that first. And that's a really quick read. I mean, it's only like, I think it's only around 200 pages or so it's really quick to read. If you're not a big reader, you can pick it up and still enjoy it. But yeah, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you thought about the movie, and tell me what you think about the book, The Hobbit. If there's some things about The Hobbit you don't like, if there are some things that you really like that are really cool, if you think they completely screwed the movie up and disagree with me completely, then okay, that's fine. Just give me a good explanation why. That kind of stuff is cool. I like engaging in discussions on here. But that is it for tonight, and thank you very much.